Hello, and thanks for joining me for this first session in a series of webinars as I share my BricsCAD journey. I'm Heidi Hewett, User Success Manager at BricsCAD, the makers of BricsCAD software. After more than 3 decades as an AutoCAD user and almost as long working for the makers of AutoCAD, I've recently transitioned to BricsCAD, and I'm excited to share my experience with you. If you are also transitioning from AutoCAD or another CAD application, or even if you're completely new to CAD, I want to help you move to the next level of productivity with BricsCAD. While we're waiting for others to join, I'd love to hear where you're from. Feel free to enter a comment here in Facebook. I'm coming to you from the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, so it's a beautiful day here. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Now, today is all about getting you started with BricsCAD. First, I'll show you how to download and install the free trial. It's really fast and easy. And then I'll introduce you to the primary user interface elements, which includes some that are probably familiar, as well as some that I'm sure are new to you and very innovative. We'll take a quick look at the default BricsCAD workspaces, and then I'll show you how to experiment with BricsCAD at different trial levels. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing we're going to do is I just want to take you to the BricsCAD homepage. That's where you can access the trial. So this is what it looks like. Down at the bottom, you'll see this bright green download button. You can go ahead and select on that. Now, if you don't already have a BricsCAD account, it's very easy to create one. If you just click right down here, Register Now, click on that. All you have to do is provide your email address and then a password. And of course, confirm you're not a robot. But if you once you have your account, and I already have mine, then you simply enter that email and your password and log in. Now I'll go ahead and do that. So when you're ready to download, you log into your BricsCAD account. You have option of downloading BricsCAD for Windows, Linux, or Mac. So 3 different versions there. And various languages. Select the one that's most appropriate for you. So I'll choose English, and then I'm on Windows. I'm choosing the 64-bit option. And of course, you'll read the terms of use, and then you simply start downloading that. Now, I'm not going to download it now just because I don't want to take up bandwidth while I'm presenting here. So I instead will go back to the presentation and just show you a few steps of what you'll see when you download. So the download is super fast. It took me about a minute to download and a minute to install the software. Very easy. Once you start installing, then it will take you through the setup wizard and just typical prompts that you probably have seen with other software. Of course, you'll read the license agreement and accept that. And you can choose where to install it. I always just take the default, but it's up to you if you want to install it somewhere else. And then you go ahead, start the install. It will have various options like installing a shortcut on the desktop or displaying the release notes. And then you have the different file types. Now, I do want to point out that DWG is the default file type for BricsCAD. So, and these you probably see here some other familiar file types, especially if you're coming from AutoCAD like I did. And by default, those are selected just as you see there, but you can choose which ones you want to have associated with BricsCAD. Again, I just take all the defaults. All right, then you start the process of installing, and it takes, just like I said, for me, it was about a minute to install it. And once it's installed, you go ahead and can launch BricsCAD right then, or launch it later. Maybe you've installed the desktop icon, or however you normally launch programs from your computer. When you launch BricsCAD, if you're using the trial, then it will tell you how much time is left in your trial session. And at any time during your trial period, or even after it expires, you can go ahead and launch BricsCAD and then simply enter the license. If you decide to buy a license while you're doing the trial or afterwards, you can go ahead and enter that license key right here. Okay, so there's no need to uninstall and reinstall. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the user interface. And with that, we will start with the Getting Started and the Welcome window. That's the first thing you'll see when you launch BricsCAD the very first time. You'll see this Welcome window. And I'm going to start going through it here at the bottom with tutorials. So if you look at tutorials, this is a great thing to be aware of. Many great resources. Oh, they posted my most recent blog post there. So if you look through, you'll see the most recent posts, but you can also go up here to the menu and here, oops, a little bit slow, I guess, because I'm broadcasting, so I won't show you that right now. Normally you would see various options, various topics you can click on, or you can always go up here and type, maybe you want to learn more about blocks. So you can just type some topic, search on it, and it will give you all the results for that topic. All right, so those are tutorials, great resource to come back to and be aware of. What's new, this is actually those release notes, if you remember during the install, where it offers you the option to read the release notes during the install. You can do that, but it's also good to know how to get back to the release notes because there's a lot of great information here. With each release of BricsCAD, it will show you the version, what was fixed in it, if there were enhancements, improvements as well. So it shows you a lot of useful information there to be aware of. Definitely worth reading through because there's often really nice improvements in each release. All right, now we're getting to the profile presets. So think of these as sort of templates for profiles. And BricsCAD comes with 5 by default that you can use to start BricsCAD, and then you can always create your own as well. And basically you use these templates to then create your own profiles. Okay, so also the other thing you want to be aware of is up here in the upper right corner where you can specify the inches, or I'm sorry, the units. And I'm here in the US, so I will choose inches. Then I'll select a profile. If I typically do a lot of 2D drafting, then that might be the profile I want to start with. You can take the default name or you can give it some other name. I'll just say HH just to distinguish this as a profile that I'm creating based off that template. Now, before I choose OK here, I do want to point out that the very first time you launch BricsCAD, you will not have a Getting Started tab here. That only is added after you create your first profile and start working in BricsCAD. I've already been working in BricsCAD, that's why I have Getting Started. But as soon as you choose OK to create your first profile, then the Get Started tab is added there and you'll see your new profile listed there at the bottom. I already had my 3D modeling tab that I created, or my 3D modeling profile that I created previously. You'll also see here in the Get Started tab that you've got your recent file list, so you can very quickly open any of those recent files just by clicking on them. You can also open a new drawing or open another drawing from a different location with this link right here. You can start a new drawing and it will use a template, whatever the last template is you used, or a template that's associated with the profile that you selected. And you can also start from any template. So if you've got your templates located out there, you can choose this option to start from any template. Now, before we go on into BricsCAD, I do want to point out a couple other things here on the Welcome window. This one in the upper right corner is Get Started Help. If you click on that, it will take you to the BricsCAD help system, specifically with the Get Started and Welcome window information there if you want to learn more about what I've talked about here. And then very dim here in the lower right corner is the option to not show this window again. If you don't want to come into the Welcome window, you want to go straight into BricsCAD and start working, you can turn this on, so you don't want to see this again. And I'll show you in BricsCAD how you can enable it so that you do see it again if you want to later. If you turn this on, this option, so you don't see the Welcome window, it takes you into BricsCAD. It uses the last template, the last profile that you launched with. So, but just be aware that you may want to turn it back on in case you want to come back here for easy access to tutorials and what's new. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I'm just going to start a new drawing, and that will take us into BricsCAD. And I'll just walk you through the interface. Actually, before I do that, though, I do want to point out a few things. I mentioned that I tell you how to get that Welcome window back. You can type Get Started at the command line. There in the lower right corner, you can see that, Get Started. And if you just set that back to 1 or on, then you'll get that Welcome window back every time you launch BricsCAD. Also, I want to mention those profiles. So we created our own profile, and you can access those and manage them with the Profile Manager. So that's the command I'm entering right there. It's the Profile Manager. And here you can see the 3D modeling one, and you can see the 2D drafting, which is the current one. This is also a place where you can delete them. If you don't want one of these anymore, maybe you've been experimenting like I did initially, and I created all kinds of profiles, this is where you can delete those. Okay, so I'll go ahead and one other resource I want to show you, again, before I get into the whole user interface here, is up here in the upper right corner, the help system. This is a great way to learn more. Go to the help system. But also, I want to point out support. If you already have installed BricsCAD, maybe you're working on the trial or you actually purchased it and you run across some issue or problem that you want addressed, this support link is very useful to go to. You can search the database for existing issues that have been reported or solved, and you can also put in your own support request there. Okay, so getting back to the user interface here, across the top we have the menus, and you can click on those and access commands from any of those menus. And if you've worked in AutoCAD or some other CAD applications for a while, those may look familiar. Also, there's toolbars. So up here I've got some toolbars across the top and on the side. There are many more toolbars than what's displayed. These are just the ones that are displayed by default in the 2D drafting workspace, and I'll talk more about workspaces in a little bit. On the right side, we have the properties panel. Again, it's displayed by default, but you can move it, you can drag and drop it, you can turn it off, whatever you want to do, completely up to you. And at the bottom, I've already started using the command window, but you can see that it's just another panel. Just with any of the panels like properties, you can resize and move and dock and close, whatever you want to do there. So that's the command window at the bottom. Inside the drawing area, that's what we have right here. This is all the drawing area. In the lower left corner, you have your icon, UCS icon. In the upper right corner, this is called the Look From tool. And if you've worked in AutoCAD, this is kind of like the view cube in AutoCAD. So it works very similar, but this is called Look From, and it just has a slightly different look, but serves the same purpose. All right, and then at the bottom of the display, I did mention already the command window, but I want to just, actually before I do that, let me talk about the ribbon real quick. One of the first things you may notice that's different if you're coming from AutoCAD, as I did, is that the ribbon is not displayed. There is a ribbon, however, it's just turned off by default. You can right-click on any user interface element and have easy access to any of the panels, including the ribbon, which is a panel also. So you can turn the ribbon on and off right there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back off, because in a few minutes I'm going to talk about another really cool, easy way to access commands in BricsCAD. But before I talk about that, I want to emphasize the command window a little bit more, because this is a way, especially if you're like me and you've come from a long time of working in AutoCAD, you're probably used to typing in at the command line. And I know I am. I like the user interface as well, but often I will type commands in down here at the command line. Now, if you're used to doing that, you can type just as you're always, have been used to doing. I can type C, for example. It pulls up the C command alias, and here in the parentheses, I see that's going to launch the circle command. As I continue typing, it will narrow down the list, and I can scroll through and pick any commands that start with whatever I've been typing here. I'm going to go ahead and choose the circle command, or just I could have hit enter right there. And you'll see at the bottom I've got my different options, so that probably looks familiar to you if you've worked in this kind of environment before. But I also want to point out something that's unique to BricsCAD, and that's the menu in the upper right corner here. That also displays your command options. So you can come over here to this menu and click on any of those options. For example, I'm going to choose multiple circles. That's actually an option that's kind of unique to BricsCAD. I'll choose multiple circles, and then I want to create my circles with the 2-point option. I come over here and create my 2-point circle, and because I had first selected the multiple option, I can then repeat that same circle multiple times. So I just want to point out again, the command line is there, and it works very much like you are probably used to from other CAD applications. But now I want to introduce you to something that you may not be used to if you have not used BricsCAD before, and that is called the quad. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is clean my screen. I'm going to right-click. This gives me access to the quad, and one of my options here, I believe, is clean screen, although I may have, yeah, there it is, clean screen. Okay, so that automatically turns off most of my UI elements. I could turn off the command line even, I'm going to do that. I'm going to close the command line down here at the bottom. You can see I've got a very clean screen, and even with my command window turned off, one of the neat things is that I still can see my command history, and I can even continue typing. So I could type C, for example, to launch circle, and it's displayed there just very subtly at the bottom without taking up any of my real estate. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to use the command line, even though I could. Instead, what I'm going to do is use the quad. And if you right-click in BricsCAD, you'll see the quad displays. And if you don't have any objects selected or you're not hovering on objects, then it displays commands that are relevant for not having a selection. For example, I could start drawing a rectangle here. And I'm just going to type in, I'm going to start it at 0, 0, and this is going to be for a floor plan, so I'll say 40, and tab over to the other dimension for 30 feet. Okay, and I'll zoom out so I can see my, my floor plan. And I can continue working on this, and notice as so I drew this rectangle with the quad. If I pass my cursor over an object like this rectangle, I'm not even selecting the rectangle. I just pass it over, and BricsCAD knows the last tool that I used with that type of object. So that it displays very quickly by default right there on the quad, as well as other things such as the layer and color, which I can hover over and change, color layer, I can change any of that right there. But if I hold the cursor over that tool, because maybe that's not exactly the tool I want, it will display the most recent 6 tools there. So I can select from the most recent 6 tools that I used for that type of object, a polyline. If that's still not what I want, I can even go further and expand it more, where I can get these modify tools and edit tools. For example, edit is specifically relevant to polyline type objects. So I can very easily access a variety of commands. This makes it super easy for me to work in BricsCAD without having to worry about where my UI elements are. They're right there at the quad. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I use the offset command, and maybe I'll just offset this. We'll just say 6 units to the inside. And I can continue working there. Again, no object selected. If I right-click, I could draw a line. I can, acquire points, very much like you're probably used to working if you're like me, coming from AutoCAD. Okay, I can use acquired points. I can drag over using ortho and polar. All right, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but I just want you to be aware of the quad because it's a super easy way to access your tools without having to take up space on your command line. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close out of here, close this down, get back to the presentation, and let's see, here we go. So we talked about user interface, we talked about command access. Now workspaces. So what I want to do is take you back to the BricsCAD home page, and before I get into the software and talk about workspaces and trial levels, I want to explain, I think it will help you understand workspaces and trial levels if you actually understand what you have with the trial and what the purchase options are. So if you go in here, you can go to Products, BricsCAD, and this will tell you all kinds of information about BricsCAD. If you scroll down, you'll see the different purchase options for BricsCAD. There's Classic, Pro, and Platinum. Now, if you didn't read real careful when you were installing the trial, you may not realize that you're actually getting the Platinum version. So by default, the trial installs the Platinum. Platinum, let me kind of explain the different options here. Classic, if you're coming from AutoCAD, an AutoCAD type environment, Classic is more like AutoCAD LT. It's just for 2D, but it does support Lisp. So that's kind of a super nice bonus there that BricsCAD Classic, while it is only 2D, it does support Lisp. And then BricsCAD Pro, you might compare that more to AutoCAD. It has full Lisp support. Basically, it has everything that Classic has, plus direct modeling, rendering, access to many third-party applications. And then there's Platinum. Platinum has everything that Pro has, plus it's got additional functionality. It's got a lot of artificial intelligence type functionality. It can recognize design intent, assembly modeling, deformable modeling, so it does a lot more even. That's the Platinum Edition. Again, you have that with the trial. Now, the other thing to mention is that there are also some add-on applications that you can use to make these even more specific to your industry. You can add on BricsCAD BIM, or sheet metal. There's also an add-on that lets you import models from other applications. So it's important to realize that, and those BIM and sheet metal add-ons only work with the Platinum version, okay? So let's go back into BricsCAD, and I will show you how you can test BricsCAD at these different trial levels. All right. So here we've got BricsCAD open. Now I mentioned the workspaces, so we'll talk about those first before trial levels. Down here at the right, or on the status bar at the bottom, you'll see the 2D drafting. That's what the current workspace is. Now I put clean screen and I kind of, change different things. But you can always go in here to the workspace. I'm going to right click on 2D drafting, and you can change to different workspaces. I'll go to 3D modeling, for example. And it looks very similar to 2D drafting. It's got some of the same, really pretty much the same user interface elements, but you'll see that some things like the model tab have been added because it's in the 3D modeling workspace. You may want to do some modeling, obviously, in there. Okay, so it looks real similar to 2D drafting, but a few additional elements. Let's look down here at the mechanical workspace. Okay, that looks quite different. That displays the ribbon instead of the toolbars and the menu. So that's got the ribbon, it's got access to all these mechanical type of tools. And then if we right click again, we've got sheet metal, and that looks very similar to the mechanical workspace, but it also has access to sheet metal design tools. Okay, now that one, those tools are available if you add on the sheet metal module to BricsCAD Platinum. And then BIM, this gives you access to things that are related to building information modeling. So here we've got different wall libraries on the left side, and for the floor, you can, of course, customize your own. I won't go into all the details there, but just looking at the workspaces, again, very easy to switch, and it does matter which, if you want to use the tools on sheet metal or BIM, then you will need, for those, you will need one of those, each of those add-ons. Okay. So those are workspaces. I just wanted you to see quickly how you can switch between them. What I want to do now is show you trial levels. So when you install BricsCAD trial, you have Platinum. You also have access to the BIM and sheet metal tools. But if you want to test BricsCAD at different levels, maybe you're a CAD manager, or you are not quite sure if you want to upgrade from Platinum, or from Pro to one of the others, you can use BricsCAD trial levels to test it out. So I've turned the command line back on here because I want to show you how to use BricsCAD at different trial levels. If you use the command run as trial level, you'll see you have various options. You can choose BricsCAD here. If I hit enter for BricsCAD, by default, it's giving me, my trial license is giving me the Platinum. That's how it's running, but you can always change this. Maybe I want to see if I can just get by with 2D design tools. So you can try C for Classic, and do notice here the message that says the new level will be in use after restarting BricsCAD. So you will have to close and relaunch BricsCAD to see, to have access, to limit your access just to Classic. Maybe you're a CAD manager and you want to see, well, I do Platinum, and if I've got Platinum, then I would have access, if I choose to add on for certain people, I could add on BIM or sheet metal. Again, with the trial, you already have access to BIM and sheet metal. If you want to make sure you're testing it out without those tools just to see the difference, then you can always go in here with run as level to BIM and say no license. I don't want the BIM license, I don't want the sheet metal license. Just let me try BricsCAD Platinum without those. Okay, so very easy for you to experiment with those. And you can continue to use these tools after the trial when you actually purchase a license, but they will only let you move down from whatever trial or whatever license you've purchased. So you can't, for example, use purchase a Classic license and then use this run as level to work in these other modes. Okay, so something to definitely be aware of. I have found it very helpful as I've been learning BricsCAD to see what features are available with the different levels. All right, so with that, let's go back to the presentation and kind of finish up here. All right, so we talked about workspaces and trial levels. So what's next? There are a lot of great resources to help you get started with BricsCAD, and I've got some of them listed up here. You can, oh, let's see, I just lost my thing there. There we go. Okay, so you can install the trial. I took you through that process. If you haven't done that already, I definitely encourage you to do that. But don't just install it. You want to use the trial. I think you'll be really impressed. I know I have been. And then also subscribe to the BricsCAD blog. We've got a lot of posts up there, and I'm actually going to just go ahead and take you there while we're thinking about it. So this is where I've been documenting my journey as I have been learning BricsCAD completely from scratch. And if you go to the BricsCAD blog, you'll probably see some of my posts. You can always click on Heidi's blog, and this will give you a list of all the posts that I have been doing. And if you scroll way down there, you'll see all the way at the bottom my very first post, and continuing to post from there as I learned about the download and install and the welcome window and exploring the interface. So the video I've been showing you, or what I've been presenting to you today on this webinar, actually has taken you through these first maybe 5, 6, 7, I guess, these first 7 blog posts, and I will continue doing webinars as I lead you through drawing entities and settings and some of these other posts. So I will continue doing more webinars. But if you don't want to wait for those webinars, then I definitely encourage you to come to the BricsCAD homepage, or I'm sorry, BricsCAD blog. And up here you can subscribe. If you scroll all the way to the bottom on the blog, you can fill in your email address and sign up to get notices whenever there's new posts. And if you go to any of the blog posts, actually, I believe you'll be able to sign up pretty quickly right over here, subscribe to the newsletter, and you can access the trial really easily from there. So I definitely encourage you to just keep up with the BricsCAD blog, because we have lots of great posts coming up all the time, a lot of valuable information there. All right, let's get back to the presentation because we have other great resources. You can follow BricsCAD on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Those are all social media outlets that you probably want to get up and follow us so that you can stay up to date on all the newest information, and when we have something like this going on, live sessions on Facebook or Twitter, I'm sorry, or YouTube. Also, you can follow me. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, and if you want to follow me, it's Heidi L. Hewett. If you have questions, maybe you've downloaded the trial and you're ready to purchase, or you have questions about it, you can, especially if you have questions about the purchase options, you can call 833-BRICSCAD, 833-274-2797. So a lot of resources, and this is just the beginning. There are other resources, but if you can get to one of these, then you'll be able to get to the others as well. All right, thank you so much. I hope you found this valuable, and definitely continue to tune in, follow us, and we will have more of these sessions coming up in the future.